Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Dr. Wesley Wark. He is a senior fellow at the Center for International Governance and Innovation. So let's get a little bit more granular here about the Johnston report. I'm going to just offer a broad question. We can get certainly more detailed as we go along. But what's your initial take on his recommendations?
Well, he's really zeroing in on two problems that he sees in the Canadian system for dealing with various kinds of national security threats, particularly foreign interference. One of the problems is that his view and his criticisms, I think, were very striking on this front. That the way in which national security and intelligence is governed, the kind of institutional setting in Ottawa is dysfunctional. There are too many hindrances to the circulation of intelligence and to ensuring that proper attention is paid to the kinds of warning messages and overall assessments in those intelligence reports. He's very critical in effect of a dysfunctional system for the circulation and use of intelligence, and I think that's an important criticism. He's also calling attention to the fact, and this goes to the recommendation to hold public hearings. He really says, look, and it's not the first person to say this, we need more transparency around national security issues. The public needs to be better informed about national security threats, including foreign interference, election interference. And, there are many actors that can come to play to ensure that this happens. And the CSIS director himself has called for this kind of thing. But in Mr. Johnston's mind, one of the ways to ensure some greater degree of public knowledge and transparency is by way of these proposed public hearings that he wants to hold, where he'll be able to hear from a wide range of individuals, experts, diaspora communities that might have been affected by election interference, international persons with experience of these questions, government ministers, and I think he also hopes opposition politicians will take part. On that, we'll have to see, because their response to his report so far has not been very positive.
No, and I'd love to get your sense of that too, because obviously there's been a lot of criticism on Mr. Trudeau for appointing Mr. Johnston, given his seeming connection with the Trudeau family and with his role on the Trudeau Foundation. And obviously that was a question that was raised in the news conference, and Mr. Johnston was asked, what about this idea that you're not truly an independent player in this, you're too connected with the Trudeau family. And he said, well, I asked Frank Iacobucci, a former Supreme Court justice, and he said everything was okay. And then it turns out Frank Iacobucci was also on the Trudeau Foundation board. So how can he gain the trust of the opposition parties given this situation, I guess?
Yeah, it's very complicated, and I obviously Mr. Johnston was very passionate in defense of his own integrity and independence, and certainly sort of pushed back against claims that he was in some way enthralled somehow or another to the Trudeau government. From my perspective, Tony, I'm not interested in impugning the reputation of Mr. Johnston. I don't take seriously the allegations that because he served, on the Trudeau Foundation board, that this somehow kind of ensnares him. He spoke directly to the question of the nature of his so-called friendship with the Prime Minister, which was not, in his words, a real friendship in any sense. I think, to be honest, Mr. Johnston's recommendations and the work that comes should be judged on the basis of the content. What does he deliver? Is it strong? Is it independent? Is it meaningful? Judge it on the record, I would say. But that's not the approach, at the moment at least, that opposition critics want to take. Why is that? Well, part of it's rooted in the fact that they had really committed themselves to the idea that we had to have a public inquiry. That campaign has fallen short, and now they're going to have to readjust their approach to this whole issue. Because frankly, I don't think that rear view mirror stances are going to do them much good in that front.
Right, and it'll be interesting to see the parliamentary debate on this in some form, because it's not only the Conservatives but also the New Democrats who continue to call for a public inquiry. So that'll be debated in Parliament. We'll leave the parliamentarians to debate that. We'll continue to assess this report on this show, however, after this break. Please stay with us.